Welcome all to my channel Education by Haneet. Okay, so today we will be doing the last chapter of our history book, The Making of the National Movement 1870s to 1947. Okay, now in this chapter we will be covering about a gradual process, starting with the English educated professionals forming associations like the Indian National Congress in 1885 to demanding greater Indian participation in governance, criticizing British economic exploitation through newspapers and petitions. Also, the evolvement of many reforms like the Ilbert Bill debate, right, to radical calls for Swaraj, mass mobilization like the Swadeshi and the boycott movement, then even revolutionary violence, right, culminating in the mass movements under Gandhiji like non-cooperation movement and salt satyagraha, etc. Okay, so we will be covering about all these movements in this chapter. So let's start with the chapter. See here they have given what all we have covered in the previous chapters. Okay, so we have looked at the British conquest of territories and takeover of kingdoms, then introduction of new laws and administrative institutions, then changes in the lives of peasants and tribals, educational changes in the 19th century, then debates regarding the condition of women, challenges to the caste system, social and religious reforms, the revolt of 1857 and its aftermath, then the decline of crafts and growth of industries. Okay, so now on the basis of what you have read about these issues, do you think Indians were discontented with British rule? If so, how were different groups and classes dissatisfied? Okay, see here this figure 1. This is police tear gas demonstrators during the Quit India movement. Okay, this is a picture of Quit India movement. Now the first topic, the emergence of nationalism. The above mentioned developments led the people to ask a crucial question: what is this country of India and for whom it is meant? The answer that gradually emerged was India was the people of India, okay? All the people, irrespective of class, color, caste, creed, language, or gender. And the country, its resources, and systems were meant for all of them. So, with this answer came the awareness that the British were exercising control over the resources of India and the lives of its people. And until this control was ended, India could not be for Indians, right? Because at that time the Britishers were ruling India, and because India was meant for equality, Indians were not getting all those things. Okay, the consciousness began to be clearly stated by the political associations formed after 1850, especially those that came into being in the 1870s and 1880s. Okay, most of these were led by English people, English educated professionals such as lawyers. The more important ones were the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha. Okay, now this Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, it was founded in 1870. Okay, and the Indian Association, the Madras Mahajan Sabha, and the Bombay Presidency Association, and of course the Indian National Congress. Okay, now note the name Pune Sarvajanik Sabha. The literal meaning of Sarvajanik is for all the people, right? It is all for all the people. Sarv means all, Janik means of the people, okay? So all of the people. Though many of these associations function in specific parts of the country, their goals are stated as the goals of all the people of India, not those of any one region, community, or class. They worked with the idea that the people should be sovereign. Sovereign means the capacity to act independently without outside interference. So, they worked with the idea that the people should be sovereign, a modern consciousness, and a key feature of nationalism. So, this is a key feature of nationalism, that the people should be free. In other words, they believe that the Indian people should be empowered to take decisions regarding their affairs. Okay. The dissatisfaction with British rule intensified in the 1870s and 1880s. Now, during this period, also many movements began. Okay, so the Arms Act was passed in 1878, disallowing Indians from possessing arms. In the same year, the Vernacular Press Act was also enacted in an effort to silence those who were critical of the government. Okay, so this was passed, which allowed the government to seize newspaper assets to silence critics, right? So the act allowed the government to confiscate. The assets of newspapers, including the printing presses, if the newspapers publish anything that was found objectionable, okay, if something is found objectionable, the printing press was to be banned. Then in 1883, there was a furor over the attempt by the government to introduce the Ilbert Bill. Now came the Ilbert Bill, okay. The Ilbert Bill provided the trial of British or European persons by Indians and sought equality between British and Indian judges in the country. But when white opposition forced the government to withdraw the bill, Indians were enraged. When white people means the Britishers opposed this bill, so Indians got enraged. They got angry. The event highlighted the racial attitudes of the British in India. Okay, now what was Ilbert Bill? If we talk in simple words, so it was that the British outrage means the white people outrage, or the Britishers outrage over a bill that would allow Indian judges to try European expose deep-seated racial attitudes and convince Indian intellectuals of the need for an all India political organization. Okay, so they said that Indian judges would be equal to the British judges, and then they can also take decisions right accordingly. So the need for an all India organization of educated Indians has been felt since 1880, but the Ilbert Bill controversy deepened this desire. The Indian National Congress was established when 72 delegates from all over the country met at Bombay in December 1885. The early leadership Dadabhai Naoroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, Badruddin Tyabji, W.C. Banerjee, Surendranath Banerjee, Romesh Chandra Dutt, S. Subramania Iyer, among others, was largely from Bombay and Calcutta. Naroji, a businessman and a publicist, settled in London. Publicist means someone who publicizes an idea by circulating information, writing reports, speaking at meetings. So Naroji was a businessman and a publicist settled in London and for a time member of the British Parliament, guided the younger nationalist. A retired British official, A.O. Hume, also played a part in bringing Indians from the various regions together. Okay, so all these people were involved in all these movements, in all the reforms. Okay, now source one. Who did the Congress seek to speak for? A newspaper, the Indian Mirror wrote in January 1886. The first National Congress at Bombay is the nucleus of a future parliament for our country and will lead to the good of inconceivable magnitude for our countrymen. Badruddin Tyabji addressed the Congress as president in 1887 thus, this Congress is composed of the representatives not of any one class or community of India, but of all the different communities of India. Okay. Now see this figure 2. This is Dadabhai Naroji. Naroji's book Poverty and Un-British Rule in India offered a scathing criticism of the economic impact of British rule. Okay. Now a nation in the making. It has often been said that the Congress in the first 20 years was moderate in its objectives and methods. During this period, it demanded a greater voice for Indians in the government and its administration. It wanted the legislative councils to be made more representative, given more power, and introduced in provinces where none existed. It demanded that Indians be placed in high positions in the government. For this purpose, it called for civil service examinations to be held in India as well, not just in London. Okay, so earlier at high positions only Britishers were seated, right? But now the Indians became more aware. Now they wanted the civil service examinations to be held in our country so that people should be appointed at higher posts, and this was very much required at that time. Okay, because to make an impact on the Britishers, right? So the demand for Indianization of the administration was part of a movement against racism, since most important jobs at the time were monopolized by white officials. Okay, only only white people were seated on those high posts, and the British generally assumed that Indians could not be given positions of responsibility. Now they used to think that Indian people are not responsible, so they should not be given positions of responsibility, right? Only we people can manage and do anything, everything. So, since British officers were sending a major part of their large salaries home, Indianization, it was hoped, would also reduce the drain of wealth to England. Now, they were earning here because they were at high positions, they were earning good salaries, and they were sending this Indian money to their country, right? So, our country was becoming poor and they were becoming richer. So, and in this way Indianization will never happen. Okay, so other demands included the separation of the judiciary from the executive, the repeal of the Arms Act, and the freedom of speech and expression. They said that the judiciary should be separated from the executive. Like judiciary, the the courts, they should be created a separate entity, so that decisions, so that justice can be done, right? And what do you mean by repeal? Repeal means to undo law, to officially end the validity of something such as a law. So the laws which were fixed by Britishers, that should be undo. Okay, that should be changed, and they should be made in favor of the Indians. Okay, they wanted this, and they also wanted the freedom of speech and expression, the freedom to speak. Okay, a freedom to speak what they feel, what they want, right? The early Congress also raised a number of economic issues. Now, it declared that the British rule had led to poverty and famines. British rule obviously had led to poverty because they were sending all their money to their countries, they were becoming richer and richer, and the Indians, they were not getting everything, and this was leading to poverty and famines. Okay, so famines means extreme scarcity of food, bhukmari hona, right? Then increase in the land revenue had impoverished peasants and zamindars, and the exports of grains to Europe had created food shortages. Now the grain which was grown here, that was transported, that was exported to Britain, and the people here, they were not getting enough food to eat, right? The Congress demanded reduction of revenue, cut in military expenditure, and more funds for irrigation. It passed many resolutions on the salt tax, treatment of Indian laborers abroad, and the sufferings of forest dwellers caused by an interfering forest administration. All this shows that despite being a body of the educated elite, the Congress did not talk only on behalf of professional groups, zamindars or industrialists. So all these demands were made in favor of the Indians. The moderate leaders. Now, who are the moderate people? First, let me tell you. So the moderates, they believed in peaceful and legal methods. Okay, these were the moderate people. Same were their attitude towards the movements. So the moderate leaders wanted to develop public awareness about the unjust nature of British rule. So they were making the public aware of all these things, okay, that we Indians were facing, and what changes we all require. So that for that they published newspapers, wrote articles, and showed how British rule was leading to the economic ruin of the country. They criticized British rule in their speeches and sent representatives to different parts of the country to mobilize public opinion. Okay, they felt that the British had respect for the ideals of freedom and justice, and so they would accept the just demands of Indians. What was necessary, therefore, was to express these demands and make the government aware of the feeling of Indians. Okay, so because they want that freedom of speech and expression, so that they can tell the Britishers that we need this, we require this. This is for our good, right? Now, freedom is a birthright. By the 1890s, many Indians began to raise questions about the political style of the Congress. In Bengal, Maharashtra, and Punjab, leaders such as Bipin Chandra Pal, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and Lala Lajpat Rai were beginning to explore more radical objectives and methods, right? So radical, what do you mean by radical? Radical means a drastic, a fundamental approach to for a significant change. Okay, so they want change, right? Then they criticize the moderates for their politics of prayers and emphasize the importance of self-reliance and constructive work. They argued that people must rely on their own strength and not on the good intentions of the government. People must fight for Swaraj. Tilak raised the slogan, "Freedom is my birthright and I shall have it." So he said that don't depend on the government only. Be self reliant, be self responsible, be self independent, and do some constructive work, and mm, start with a change, and that will change. That will, bring about a change yourself. In 1905, Viceroy Curzon partitioned Bengal. At that time, Bengal was the biggest province of British India and included Bihar and parts of Orissa. The British argued for dividing Bengal for reasons of administrative convenience. But what did administrative convenience mean? Whose convenience did it represent? Clearly, it was closely tied to the interests of the British officials and businessmen. Okay, now this was only convenient for whom? For the Britishers. Even so, instead of removing the non-Bengali areas from the province, the government separated East Bengal and merged it with Assam. Perhaps the main British motives were to curtail the influence of Bengali politicians and to split the Bengali people. Okay, so the main motive of this separation was to split the Bengali people. The partition of Bengal infuriated people all over India. Okay, it infuriated people all over India. And this movement, it sparked the Swadeshi movement as well. Okay, so all sections of the Congress, the moderates and the radicals, as they may be called, opposed it. They both the groups, they opposed this partition of Bengal. Large public meetings and demonstrations were organized, and novel methods of mass protest developed. The struggle that unfolded came to be known as the Swadeshi movement, strongest in Bengal but with echoes elsewhere too. In Delhi like Andhra, for instance, it was known as the Vande Mataram movement. Now the same movement was known as Vande Mataram movement in Andhra, okay, and in Bengal it was known as Swadeshi movement. And this was happening all over India, not just in one place, okay. See, this is Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Notice the name on the newspaper that lies on the table. Kesari, a Maratha newspaper called by Tilak, became one of the strongest critics of the British rule. And this figure also, figure 4, thousands joined the demonstrations during the Swadeshi movement. Now let's talk about the Swadeshi movement. The Swadeshi movement sought to oppose British rule and encourage the ideas of self-help, Swadeshi enterprise, national education and use of Indian languages. Okay, Swadeshi means apne desh ka, right? So they were fighting for all those things, that our language, our enterprise, everything should be our Indian. Okay. The fight for Swaraj. Radicals advocated mass mobilization and boycott of British institutions and goods. So in this Swadeshi movement, boycott of British goods was also done. What do you mean by boycott? Means we will not use or buy those goods. Okay. Some individuals also began to suggest that revolutionary violence would be necessary to overthrow British rule. Now, what do you mean by revolutionary violence? Means the use of violence to make a radical change within society, a significant change. Okay. The opening decades of the 20th century were marked by the other developments as well. A group of Muslim landlords and Nawabs formed the All India Muslim League at Dhaka in 1906. The league supported the partition of Bengal. It desired separate electorates for Muslims, a demand conceded by the government in 1909. Some seats in the council were now reserved for Muslims who would be elected by Muslim voters. This tempted politicians to gather a following by distributing favors to their own religious groups. Okay. And what do you mean by council? Means an appointed or elected body of people with an administrative, advisory, or representative function. So they demanded for separate electorates for Muslims. Okay. Now, what do you mean by separate electorates? Means electors who vote for their own community representatives. Okay. So this happened during that time. Then, meanwhile, the Congress split in 1907. The moderates were opposed to the use of boycott. They felt that it involved the use of force. After the split, the Congress came to be dominated by the moderates, with Tilak's followers functioning from outside. The two groups reunited in December 1915. Now, these two groups, they reunited in December 1915. Next year, the Congress and the Muslim League signed the historic Lucknow Pact and decided to work together for representative government in the country. Then in 1916, the Congress and these Muslim League, they decided to work together for self-rule and common political demands. Then, due to this, they signed a pact at Lucknow in 1916, right? Known as the Lucknow Pact. This is figure 5, Lala Lajpat Rai, a nationalist from Punjab. He was one of the leading members of the radical group which was critical of the politics of petitions. He was also an active member of the Arya Samaj. The growth of mass nationalism. After 1919, the struggle against British rule gradually became a mass movement involving peasants, tribal students, and women in large numbers, and occasionally factory workers as well. Certain business groups too began to actively support the Congress in the 1920s. Now, why was this so? The First World War altered the economic and political situation in India. It led to a huge rise in the defense expenditure of the government of India. The government in turn increased taxes on individual incomes and business profits. Increased military expenditure and the demands for war supplies led to a sharp rise in prices, which created great difficulties for the common people. Right now, this was the negative impacts of the First World War. What happened? Defense and military expenditure rose. Then demand of war supplies also rose. This raised custom duties and it started income tax. Okay, so the people had to now pay a tax on the incomes. On the other hand, business groups reaped fabulous profits from the war. Now business people they also reaped now they were positive impact as well. They were gaining profits. So the war created a demand for industrial goods like jute bags, cloth, rails, and caused a decline of imports from other countries into India. So Indian industries expanded during the war. The Indian groups began to demand greater opportunities for development. Now, because the boycott happened, so the things were not imported from other countries, okay? So, because of that, the Indian industries expanded because people were buying from them only and their business expanded, okay? The profits rose. And that created greater opportunities, greater job opportunities also for people, okay? The war also led the British rule to expand the army. Villagers were pressurized to supply soldiers for an alien cause. A large number of soldiers were sent to serve abroad. Many returned after the war with an understanding of the ways in which imperialist powers were exploiting the people of Asia and Africa and with a desire to oppose colonial rule in India. Furthermore, in 1917, there was a revolution in Russia. News about peasants and workers' struggles and ideas of socialism circulated widely, inspiring Indian nationalism. Now came the advent of Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Okay, he was a non-violent reformer. Okay, and it is in these circumstances that Mahatma Gandhi emerged as a mass leader. As you may know, Gandhiji, aged 46, arrived in India in 1915 from South Africa. Having led Indians in that country in non-violent marches against racist restrictions, he was already a respected leader, known internationally. His South African campaigns had brought him in contact with various types of Indians: Hindus, Muslims, Parsis and Christians, Gujaratis, Tamils and North Indians, and upper class merchants, lawyers and workers. Mahatma Gandhi spent his first year in India traveling throughout the country, understanding the overall view and conditions of people. Okay, so he traveled across the country, understanding the people, their needs, and the overall situation. His earliest interventions were in local movements in Champaran, Khera, and Ahmedabad, and where he came into contact with Rajendra Prasad and Vallabhbhai Patel in Ahmedabad. He led a successful mill worker strike in 1918. Okay, so see, Gandhiji he held three local satyagrahas at Champaran in 1917, then in Khera in 1918, and in Ahmedabad in 1918 again. Okay, in 1919 he started a nationwide satyagraha against rowlatt act. Right now, here they are saying let us focus on some details of the movements organized between 1919 and 1922. Now, so we are talking now about the rowlatt satyagraha in 1919. Okay. Now, what this Rowlatt Satyagraha is about? So, it allowed the government to arrest people without a warrant and hold them without trial for up to 2 years. Okay. So, in 1919, Gandhiji gave a call for a satyagraha against the Rowlatt Act that the British had just passed. The act curbed fundamental rights such as the freedom of expression and strengthened police powers. Mahatma Gandhi, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and others felt that the government had no right to restrict people's basic freedom. They criticized the act as devilish and tyrannical. They were strongly against this act, okay, because the Britishers had forced laws, unjust laws against the Indians, which was restricting basic freedom of the Indian people. They criticized the act as devilish and tyrannical. Gandhiji asked the Indian people to observe 6 April 1919 as a day of non-violent opposition to this act as a day of humiliation and prayer and hartal strike. Satyagraha Sabhas were set up to launch the movement. So this picture, the walled compound in which General Dyer opened fire on a gathering of people. These are the bullet marks in Jallianwala Bagh. The Roller Satyagraha turned out to be the first all India struggle against the British government, although it was largely restricted to cities. In April 1919, there were a number of demonstrations and hartals in the country, and the government used brutal measures to suppress them. The Jallianwala Bagh atrocities inflicted by General Dyer in Amritsar on Baisakhi Day, 13 April, were a part of this repression. On learning about the massacre, Rabindranath Tagore expressed the pain and anger of the country by renouncing his knighthood. Knighthood means an honor granted by the British crown for exceptional personal achievement or public service. So he gave up his knighthood. During the Rowlatt Satyagraha, the participants tried to ensure that Hindus and Muslims were united in the fight against British rule. So they need unity between Hindus and Muslims. This was also the call of Mahatma Gandhi, who always saw India as a land of all the people who lived in the country: Hindus, Muslims, and those of other religions. He was keen that Hindus and Muslims support each other in any just cause. Okay. Now came the Khilafat agitation and the non cooperation movement. The Khilafat issue was one such issue. In 1920, the British imposed a harsh treaty on the Turkish Sultan or Khalifa. People were furious about this as they had been about the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, right? Also, Indian Muslims were keen that the Khalifa be allowed to retain control over Muslim sacred places in the erstwhile Ottoman Empire. The leaders of the Khilafat agitation, Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali, now wish to initiate a full-fledged non-cooperation movement. Okay, so the call for Swaraj and support for Khilafat came together, and this led to non-cooperation movement. Okay, so Gandhiji supported their call and urged the Congress to campaign against Punjab wrongs. What was done in Punjab wrong was Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Okay, the Khilafat wrong and the demand Swaraj, and they demanded Swaraj. So the call for Swaraj means the demand for Swaraj was in the support of the Khilafat movement, and which led to non-cooperation movement. Now the non-cooperation movement gained momentum through 1921 to 22. Thousands of students left government-controlled schools and colleges. Many lawyers such as Motilal Nehru, C.R. Das, C. Rajagopalachari and Asaf Ali gave up their practices. British title was surrendered and legislatures boycotted. People lit public bonfires of foreign cloth. Okay, the imports of foreign cloth fell drastically between 1920 and 1922, but all this was merely the tip of the iceberg. Large parts of the country were on the brink of a formidable revolt. Okay, now people initiated in the favor of this revolt. In many cases, people resisted British rule non-violently because Gandhiji was in support of non-violence. In others, different classes and groups interpreting Gandhiji's call in their own manner protested in ways that were not in accordance with his ideas. In either case, people linked their movements to local grievances. Let us now look at a few examples. So, in Khera, Gujarat, Patidar peasants organized non-violent campaigns against the highland revenue demand of the British, because the Britishers were demanding very high revenue on their lands. In coastal Andhra and interior Tamil Nadu, liquor shops were picketed. Picketed means people protesting outside a building or shop to prevent others from entering. Okay, so people they were disallowing people to enter these shops, the liquor shop. In the Guntur district of Andhra Pradesh, tribals and poor peasants staged a number of forest satyagrahas, sometimes sending the cattle into forest without paying grazing fee. They were protesting because the colonial state had restricted the use of forest resources in various ways. Now, these are the basic rights of these people, okay? So that is why they were opposing all these things. They believed that Gandhiji would get their taxes reduced and have forest regulations abolished. In many forest villages, peasants proclaimed Swaraj and believed that Gandhi Raj was about to be established. In Sindh, now in Pakistan, Muslim traders and peasants were very enthusiastic about the Khilafat call. In Bengal, too, Khilafat Non Cooperation Alliance gave enormous communal unity and strength to the national movement. In Punjab, the Akali agitation of the Sikhs sought to remove corrupt Mahants. Mahants means religious function, the people who were religious functionaries of Sikh Gurdwaras. They supported corrupt Mahants who were who were supported by the British, okay, from their Gurdwaras. This movement got closely identified with the non-cooperation movement in Assam. Tea garden laborers shouting Gandhi Maharaj ki jai demanded a big increase in their wages. They left the British owned plantations amidst declarations that they were following Gandhiji's wish. Interestingly, in the Assamese Vaishnava songs of the period, the reference to Krishna was substituted by Gandhi Raja. Okay, means at that time Gandhiji was considered as a god, just equivalent to God, because he was doing so many things for the people. Okay, the people's Mahatma. See if you can see this picture. Here Gandhiji is seated here as a charioteer, right? See, a popular representation of Mahatma Gandhi. In popular images too, Mahatma Gandhi is often shown as a divine being occupying a place within the pantheon of Indian gods. In this image, he is driving Krishna's chariot, guiding other national leaders in the battle against the British. The people's Mahatma. We can see from the above that sometimes people thought of Gandhiji as kind of Masiha. Masiha means a person who is favor of you, who will do something good to you, just like a god, as someone who could help them overcome their misery and poverty. Masiha is a person who will help them overcome their problems. Gandhiji wished to build class unity, not class conflict, yet peasants could imagine that he would help them in their fight against zamindars, and agricultural laborers believed he would provide them land. At times, ordinary people credited Gandhiji with their own achievements. For instance, at the end of a powerful movement, peasants of Pratapgarh in the United Provinces, now Uttar Pradesh, managed to stop illegal eviction of tenants. Illegal eviction of tenants means forcible and unlawful throwing out of tenants from the land they rent. Okay, so that these people were doing illegal eviction of tenants, eviction, but they felt it was Gandhiji who had won this demand for them. At other times, using Gandhiji's name, tribals and peasants undertook actions that did not conform to Gandhian ideals. So now, some people were using his name also take to gain benefit. Okay, some actions that were done by these tribals and peasants that were not in line with Gandhian ideals. Source 4. It was he who got Bedakli stopped in Pratapgarh. Okay, the following is an extract from a CID report on the Kisan movement in Allahabad district, January 1921. The currency which Mr. Gandhi name has acquired even in the remotest village is astonishing. No one seems to know quite who or what he is, but it is an accepted fact that what he says is so and what he orders must be done. He is a Mahatma or a Sadhu, a Pandit or a Brahmin who lives at Allahabad, even a Devta. The real power of his name is to be traced back to the idea that it was he who got Bedakli, means illegal eviction, stopped in Pratapgarh. As a general rule, Gandhiji is not thought of as an being antagonistic to government but only to the zamindars. We are for Gandhiji and the Sarkar. Now let's see the happenings between 1922 to 1929. Mahatma Gandhi, as you know, was against violent movements. He abruptly called off the non cooperation movement when, in February 1922, a crowd of peasants set fire to a police station in Chauri Chaura. Now, what happened in Chauri Chaura in 1922 was 22 policemen were killed on that day. The peasants were provoked because the police had fired on the peaceful demonstration. Okay. Now the policemen, they were in the police station and they were fired, and the police station was fired and they were killed inside. Okay, so that raised the Chauri Chaura movement, and this is a place in Uttar Pradesh, Chauri Chaura. Okay. Now, once the non-cooperation movement was over, Gandhiji's followers stressed that the Congress must undertake constructive work in the rural areas. Other leaders such as Chittaranjan Das and Motilal Nehru argued that the party should fight elections to the councils and enter them in order to influence government policies. Through sincere social work in villages in the mid 1920s, the Gandhians were able to extend their support base. This proved to be very useful in launching the civil disobedience movement in 1930. Two important developments of the mid 20s were the formation of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh RSS, a Hindu organization, okay, and it was founded by KB Hedgewar. It worked to organize Hindus because this is a Hindu organization, and the Communist Party of India. Communist Party of India was also founded in 1925. Okay, it also has many leaders like Emin Roy, S.A. Dange. It spoke for workers and peasants. These parties have held very different ideas about the kind of country India should be. Find out about the ideas with the help of your teacher. The revolutionary nationalist Bhagat Singh too was active in this period. During this period only, between 1922 to 1929, Bhagat Singh was also active. See, this is Chittaranjan Das, a major figure in the freedom movement. Das was a lawyer from East Bengal. He was especially active in the non-cooperation movement. Figure 10. Demonstrators opposed the Simon Commission. In 1927, the British government in England decided to send a commission headed by local Simon to decide India's political future. The commission had no Indian representative. The decision created an outrage in India. All political groups decided to boycott the commission because there was no Indian representative in it. When the commission arrived, it was met with demonstrations with banners saying Simon go back. The decade closed with the Congress resolving to fight for Purna Swaraj, complete independence, in 1929 under the presidency of Jawaharlal Nehru. Consequently, Independence Day was observed on 26 January 1930 all over the country. It takes a loud voice to make the deaf hear. Inqilab Zindabad. Revolutionary nationalists such as Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Sukhdev, and others wanted to fight against the colonial rule and the rich exploiting classes through a revolution of workers and peasants. For this purpose, they founded the Hindustan Socialist Republican Association HSRA in 1925 at Feroz Shah Kotla in Delhi. On December 17, 1928, Bhagat Singh, Azad, and Rajguru assassinated Saunders, a police officer who was involved in the Lathi charge that had caused the death of Lala Lajpat Rai. On 8th April 1929, Bhagat Singh and B.K. Dutt threw a bomb in the Central Legislative Assembly. The aim, as the leaflet explained, was not to kill, but to make the deaf hear and to remind the foreign government of its callous exploitation. Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev, and Rajguru were executed on March 23, 1931. Bhagat Singh's age at that time was only 23. Okay, so he charged a protest against Simon Commission led by Lala Lajpat Rai in Lahore. Lala Lajpat Rai was badly hurt and he died on 17 November 1928. And Bhagat Singh was he assassinated that the policeman who ordered all this. Okay, all this violence. He wanted to fight injustice. He wanted to change unfair laws and build a free and fair India. But he was hanged at the age of only 23. Okay. The march to Dandi. Purna Swaraj will never come on its own. It had to be fought for. So in 1930, Gandhiji declared that he would lead a march to break the salt law. Okay. According to this law, the state had a monopoly on the manufacture and salt and sale of salt. Mahatma Gandhi, along with other nationalists, reasoned that it was sinful to tax salt, since it is a such an essential item of our food. So he wanted to remove tax from salt because salt is a everyday item. We need it every day, and if this would be also costly, how would people add it and how would people eat? The Salt March related the general desire of freedom to a specific grievance shared by everybody, and thus did not divide the rich and the poor because this was a demand of rich and the poor, every caste. So this favored the support of all the people. Okay, and the Salt March only also it became the symbol of the civil disobedience movement's beginning also. Gandhiji and his followers marched over 240 miles from Sabarmati to the coastal town of Dandi, where they broke the government law by gathering natural salt found on the seashore and boiling sea water to produce salt. See, you can see in this picture as well. He's collecting salt, Mahatma Gandhi. Breaking the salt law by picking up a lump of natural salt. Dandi, 6 April 1930. Women in the freedom struggle. Ambabai from Karnataka. Women from diverse backgrounds participated in the national movement. Young and old, single and married, they came from rural and urban areas from both conservative and liberal homes. Their involvement was significant for the freedom struggle, for the women's movement, and for themselves personally. Both British officials and Indian nationalists felt that women's participation gave the national struggle an immense force. Participation in the freedom movement brought women out of their homes. It gave them a place in the professions, in the governance of India, and it could pave the way for equality with men. Because at that time, women were just confined to their homes. But now, they also wanted to do something. They also got a position in the governance of India, okay? What such participation meant for women is best recounted by them. Ambabai of Karnataka has been married at age 12. Widowed at 16, she picketed foreign cloth and liquor shops in Udupi. Okay. She was arrested, served a sentence, and was re-arrested. Between prison terms, she made speeches, taught spinning, and organized Prabhat fairies. Ambabai regarded these as the happiest days of her life because they gave it a new purpose and commitment. Women, however, had to fight for the right to participate in the movement. During the Salt Satyagraha, for instance, even Mahatma Gandhi was initially opposed to women's participation. Sarojini Naidu had to persuade him to allow women to join the movement. And then eventually, Sarojini Naidu was the first Indian woman to become president of the International Congress in 1925. Okay. Peasants, tribals, and women participated in large numbers. A business federation published a pamphlet on the salt issue. The government tried to crush the movement through brutal action against peaceful satyagrahis. Thousands were sent to jail. Now the government was taking action against these satyagrahis. The combined struggles of the Indian people bore fruit when the Government of India Act of 1935 prescribed provincial autonomy and the government announced elections to the provincial legislatures in 1937. Okay. Now, what is provincial autonomy? Capacity of the provinces to make relatively independent decisions while remaining within a federation. Okay. Now, provincial autonomy was introduced. Means the end of dual government was started, right? So now they got provincial autonomy. Now elections will be held, okay, and then ministries will be formed, okay. Then the Congress formed governments in 7 out of 11 provinces. The ministries formed. In September 1939, after 2 years of Congress rule in the provinces, the Second World War broke out, okay, means in 1941. Critical of Hitler, Congress leaders were ready to support the British war effort, but in return they wanted that India be granted independence after the war. The British refused to concede the demand. The Congress ministries resigned in protest. Veer Lakhan Nayak was hanged. Source 5. Baji Muhammad, president of the Nabrangpur Congress, Orissa in the 1930s, reports on August 25, 1942, 19 people died on the spot in police firing at Paparandi in Nabarangpur. Many died thereafter from their wounds. Over 300 were injured. More than 1,000 were jailed in Koraput district. Several were shot or executed. Veer Lagan Nayak, a legendary tribal leader who defied the British, was hanged. Nayak, Baji tells us, was not worried about being executed, only sad that he would not live to see freedom's dawn. Baji Muhammad mobilized 20,000 people to join the national struggle. He offered satyagraha many times over. He participated in protest against the Second World War and in the Quit India movement and served long jail terms. So he was also a great reformer, right? Now see here, this figure 14, Quit India movement, August 1942. Demonstrators clashed with the police everywhere. Many thousands were arrested, over 1,000 killed. Many more were injured. And this is Subhash Chandra Bose and the INA, a radical nationalist with socialist learnings. Bose did not share Gandhiji's ideal of ahimsa, though he respected him as the father of the nation. In January 1941, he secretly left his Calcutta home, went to Singapore via Germany, and raised the Azad Hind Fauj, or the Indian National Army INA. To free India from British control in 1944, the INA tried to enter India through Imphal and Kohima, but the campaign failed. The INA members were imprisoned and tried. People across the country from all walks of life participated in the movement against the INA trials. So, quit India and later. Mahatma Gandhi decided to initiate a new phase of movement against the British in the middle of the Second World War. The British must quit India immediately, he told them. To the people, he said, do or die in your effort to fight the British, but you must fight non violently. Now, he was against violence, so he said, you can do anything, but you have to fight non violently. Gandhiji and other leaders were jailed at once, but the movement spread. It specially attracted peasants and the youth who gave up their studies to join it. Communications and symbols of state authority were attacked all over the country. In many areas, the people set up their own governments. The first response of the British was severe repression. By the end of 1943, over 90,000 people were arrested and around 1,000 killed in police firing. In many areas, orders were given to machine gun crowds from aeroplanes. The rebellion, however, ultimately brought the Raj to its knees. Okay. Now the British was very strongly against it, so they were taking severe actions against these people who were protesting. So over 90,000 people were arrested at that time, and around 1,000 were killed in police firing. Okay, because all this the Quit India movement was for Britishers that quit India, go out from India. Okay. See here, figure 16. Jawaharlal Nehru listens to Mahatma Gandhi before the Bombay session of the Congress, July 1946. Gandhiji's disciple, a Congress socialist and an internationalist. Nehru was a leading architect of the national movement and of Free India's economy and polity. Now let's move to our topic towards independence and partition. Meanwhile, in 1940, the Muslim League had moved a resolution demanding independent states for Muslims in the northwestern and eastern areas of the country. The resolution did not mention partition or Pakistan. Why did the League ask for an autonomous arrangement for the Muslims of the subcontinent? Now let's find answer to that question. So we will come back to this page later. Let's first continue with that topic. So from the late 1930s, the League began viewing the Muslims as a separate nation from the Hindus. In developing this nation, it may have been influenced by the history of tension between some Hindu and Muslim groups in the 1920s and 1930s. That is why they were demanding a separate nation. More importantly, the provincial elections of 1937 seem to have convinced the League that Muslims were a minority and they would always have to play a second fiddle in any democratic structure. Minority means the people who are less. Okay. So, it feared that Muslims may even go unrepresented. So, in order to, show their value, in order to increase their value, they were doing all this. The Congress rejection of the League's desire to form a joint Congress League government in the United Provinces in 1937 also annoyed the League. The Congress' failure to mobilize the Muslim masses in 1930s allowed the League to widen its social support. It sought to enlarge its support in the early 1940s when most Congress leaders were in jail. At the end of the war in 1945, the British opened negotiations between the Congress, the League, and themselves for the independence of India. The talks failed because the League saw itself as the sole spokesperson of India's Muslims. The Congress could not accept the claim since a large number of Muslims still supported it. Elections to the provinces were again held in 1946. The Congress did well in the general constituencies, but the League's success in the seats reserved for Muslims was spectacular. Now, what do you mean by general constituencies? Means election districts with no reservations for any religious or other community. Okay. It persisted with its demand for Pakistan. In March 1946, the British cabinet sent a three-member mission to Delhi to examine this demand and to suggest a suitable political framework for a free India. This mission suggested that India should remain united and constitute itself as a loose confederation with some autonomy for Muslim majority areas. But it could not get the Congress and the Muslim League to agree to specific details of the proposal. Partition now became more or less inevitable. After the failure of the cabinet mission, the Muslim League decided on mass agitation for winning its Pakistan demand. So it announced 16th August 1946 as Direct Action Day. Now what happened was on 16th August 1946 the Muslim League called Direct Action Day, right? Why? To show support for Pakistan after cabinet mission failed. Okay, then what happened here was strikes and rallies in Calcutta turned violent, riots spread and thousands died in that. Okay. On this day, what happened was riots broke out in Calcutta, lasting several days and resulting in the deaths of thousands of people. By March 1947, violence spread to different parts of northern India. See here, you can see as well in figure 22, refugees from riot-torn Punjab gathered in New Delhi in search of shelter and food. So what happened during these riots was many 100,000 people were killed and numerous women had to face untold brutalities during the partition. Millions of people were forced to flee their homes. Torn asunder from their homelands, they were reduced to being refugees in alien lands. Partition also meant that India changed. Many of its cities changed and a new country, Pakistan, was born. So this is how Pakistan was born. So the joy of a country's independence from British rule came mixed with the pain and violence of partition. Why mixed with pain and violence means? Because for the partition, violence was done and pain was they were getting to separated from the near and dear ones. That is why they were not happy, they were in pain. Okay. So here we come to the end of this chapter. Thank you.